The muscles of the shoulder girdle that we will talk about include the trapezius, all through here, the serratus anterior shown down there, so we can give you a better look at the serratus anterior. Okay, and also back here in the rhomboids, here's the rhomboid major and minor. Note that it's pretty interesting in anatomy how minor tends to always be above major. That's the way the pec minor is it inserts back here above pec major. The zygomaticus minor right over here is above the zygomaticus major. So there's a couple examples of that, but so just note that as a fun fact in anatomy. Another example is your teres major below the teres minor. So anyway, the shoulder girdle is comprised of your clavicle, your scapula, and your humerus. And motions of the shoulder girdle are going to include retraction, that's pinching your scapula together in this form. This is completed by both the rhomboids and the trapezius as well, with a little help from the lats. So that's retraction. And the only way to perform hyperextension is by also performing scapular retraction. So you can say that the rhomboids, major and minor, are responsible for, at least are involved with, shoulder retraction. And then we have the elevation. So here's the levator scapula, which by definition are going to elevate the scapula. Also, we have the larger muscle, which is what people work in the gym while doing shrugs, and that is the trapezius. Notice that the trapezius has fibers that are ascending, that are going laterally, and that are descending as they go medially. That makes the trapezius perform a lot of different activities, including both elevation and depression of that scapula. So elevation, think of a shrug. We can look at the ascending version as you go out laterally as depressing the scapula as well. So next up, we have the serratus anterior, and in this motion we're going to be doing the opposite of retraction. We're going to perform protraction. So pulling forward. And it's thought that these muscles can actually become weaker and tighter over time if they're not used so much, and that could result in weak rhomboids and then a protracted posture. So this tends to be a clinically important muscle, serratus anterior. Also pulling us forward, as you can see there, that's the pec minor. And it is in a perfect spot to draw the acromion process, the coracoid process, forward and then protract the scapula while doing so. While the serratus anterior is pulling from that medial border back here of the scapula, it's pulling that anteriorly. Our other two motions are going to be a rotation of the scapula. I don't know if I have a good picture of scapular rotation, but potentially if flip this around and do shoulder flexion, you can see how the scapula moves while we have shoulder flexion. Alright, so let's turn this around. So you can see that it's protracting, but it's also rotating. As you can see, the inferior angle of the scapula tends to rotate forward just slightly here. As you can perform this exercise right at the end, there we have rotation. And then you have the opposite rotation as you're coming back down into extension, and then hyperextension. You typically see protraction, retraction.